Dirty algae have filled the shoreline, a smell of rot comes from the water, and the coast is covered with trash. This is what local residents say about Lake Baikal. The time when you could scoop water from Baikal with a mug and drink it without any consequences seems to be in the past. In this video, we will find out why this happened and who is actually to blame. So, what do we know? Baikal is the deepest lake on the planet and remains the largest source of fresh water on Earth, about 22% of the world's reserves. This unique body of water formed approximately 35 million years ago, and scientists are still debating its origin. And since 1996, the lake has been included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. And just a few years ago, around 2011, strange algae with an unpleasant smell and a disgusting color were noticed along the shores of the lake. Back then, people could not even imagine what this meant and what would happen to the entire coastline of Baikal. After that, several environmental expeditions were organized, the purpose of which was to determine the scale of the catastrophe. Scientists then found out that a real threat was hanging over Baikal. On the website of the Irkutsk Institute of Limnology, you can find photographs from these expeditions, where black, rotting accumulations of detritus on the shores of Baikal are already visible. Due to the rapid spread of algae, the entire ecosystem is suffering. Under such conditions, a mass die-off of microorganisms occurs, which are natural filters of water. Scientists came to the conclusion that the epidemic of Spirogyra algae, tons of which are rotting on the shores of Baikal, developed as a result of water pollution, and that wastewater treatment facilities are to blame, as well as the massive discharge of untreated sewage, fecal waters, and industrial waste from nearby enterprises. For example, the wastewater treatment station in the city of Severodvinsk, built by 2 railway depots, was used not only to treat sewage from residential areas, but also for washing railway cars. On top of that, very aggressive detergents were used at the enterprise. A cocktail of these chemical agents over several years destroyed the natural microflora of the water. In some areas of Baikal, environmental standards are exceeded several times over. Neither livestock nor people can drink water from the lake. During inspections in the Irkutsk region, it was revealed that wastewater treatment facilities in the central ecological zone of the Baikal Natural Territory do not meet the required standards. Another major polluter of the lake for a long time was the Baikal Cellulose and Paper Factory. It operated since 1966, supplied the entire country with paper, but the reverse side of its existence was environmental pollution. The plant took water from Baikal for industrial needs, and after using it, discharged it back into the lake. This approach led to pollution on a colossal scale. Waste settled on the lake bed, killing plants, fish, and microorganisms. In 2013, the Russian government ordered the plant to shut down. By that time, however, more than 40 million tons of hazardous chemical waste had already been dumped into Baikal. Inspections by the state later revealed that pollution levels along the shoreline exceeded legal limits by up to 12 times. Even though this major pollution source has now been eliminated, the damage to Baikal's ecosystem is already done, and much of it cannot be reversed. Today, however, one of the main sources of pollution enters Baikal through the Selenga River from Mongolia and from the city of Ulaanbaatar. Additional pollution comes from industrial facilities in nearby regions. A significant amount of wastewater flows from the city of Darkhan, a major industrial center in northern Mongolia with factories, construction plants, and a steel mill. Both active and abandoned industrial sites continue to harm the lake. Waste from the Zyda tungsten molybdenum plant still enters the water, although the plant was closed back in 1998. Waste pools, although concreted, have developed numerous damages over the years. As one academician admitted, earlier we did not think about Baikal's pollution at all. Even if you take everything that a human is capable of pouring into it, the concentration would still be very low, because Baikal is so huge. However, we did not think about the fact that the volume of the coastal zone is small, and it was precisely from the coastal zone that changes in the lake began and the massive appearance of algae occurred as a direct consequence of water pollution. Tourists also harm Baikal, leaving behind mountains of trash. It is common to write about Chinese tourists who pollute everything around them, but in reality Russian tourists also litter. It's just that China currently leads in the number of tourists at Baikal, while the infrastructure does not keep up with the influx of visitors. Moreover, there is a sad observation. The Chinese behave the same way Russians do, and even if visitors from China were banned from coming to the lake, the situation would not improve. In particular, Baikal still lacks a developed waste collection system. Many recreation centers operate illegally and therefore do not have any licenses to carry out certain types of work, for example, groundwater extraction or sewage discharge. In the past, everyone had simple outhouse toilets, and this did not harm anyone. But as the civilization developed, everyone wanted water to wash sewage away. The volume of the waste became enormous, and this created a problem. The number of tourist centers on the shores of Baikal is growing year by year. Profits go into the pockets of entrepreneurs, while untreated wastewater from hotels flows into the lake. For example, in the Krasnodar region there is the same problem. Even today, you can find hotels that discharge sewage into storm drains that lead directly to the sea. The flow of tourists certainly brings good revenue, but not to Baikal, to travel agencies and private business owners involved in this trade. Recently, the Accounts Chamber of Russia concluded that the environmental situation in the Baikal region is deteriorating, and the project that was created to protect and develop the ecology of Lake Baikal is under threat of failure. Since 2015, 8.5 billion rubles have been spent, but the environmental conditions have not improved. The Russian Ministry of Natural Resources failed to ensure proper coordination of the activities of government contractors within the program. One of the reasons for the failure is the missed deadlines for commissioning special program facilities. Out of 17 planned facilities, only 5 were built. According to the plan, the volume of unprocessed and misplaced waste was supposed to decrease each year, but this did not happen. Out of 4 planned landfills, 1 remains unfinished, and 3 have been commissioned but are not operating. The main environmental problems of the Republic also remain unresolved. For example, groundwater accumulations of petroleum products keep polluting the waters of Baikal's main inflow stream in Ulanyurt. Waste from enrichment plants keeps posing a threat. From 2012 to 2018, 1.5 billion rubles were spent on environmental protection measures in just these 2 areas alone. But today, the levels of petroleum products in the Selengar River, Baikal's main tributary stream, exceeds normal levels by 7.5 times. Significant funds are indeed spent under the program, but they are not going where they are most needed. Not where they are needed. This includes, for example, the construction of dams on rivers in the Irkutsk region that belong to the Angara Basin, but not to Baikal, or the construction of information and tourist centers intended to develop tourism rather than protect the lake. In fact, quite the opposite. No one disputes the need for dams or tourist centers. The issue is different. Among the many facilities of the program, the ones commissioned on time are precisely those that are not the most urgent for Baikal. The reason for all this is that agencies report simply on the receiving of federal funds. Very few people pay attention to where exactly this money goes. The main thing is that construction is underway. Today, in the central ecological zone of the Baikal Natural Territory, 6 wastewater treatment facilities operate in 5 settlements, as well as 3 facilities at 3 social infrastructure sites on the territory of the Electro Sanatorium, located at the 43rd kilometer of the Baikal Highway. There are also so-called local wastewater treatment facilities on the territory of some tourist bases, but the term homemade would be more appropriate for them. And these are all the treatment facilities for an area of 9 million hectares of the Baikal zone. Trips to Baikal are often presented as ecotourism, but even tourists should know that the air in those places is actively polluted by the Irkutsk-Cheremekovo industrial hub, thermal power plants, and mining and chemical industry enterprises located not far from the lake. The supposedly clean air of Baikal increasingly contains solid particles of hydrocarbons, sulfur, and nitrogen. The situation at Baikal has been called an environmental catastrophe, and not only because of the extinction of unique flora and fauna, but due to the sharp change of the entire ecosystem of the lake. The director of the Irkutsk Institute of Limnology is confident that in this situation there is only one way out. And that is a complete reconstruction or construction of new wastewater treatment facilities along the entire coastline of the affected regions of Baikal. And it is also necessary to resolve the issue of industrial emissions from nearby enterprises. Because if this is not resolved now, we will have nothing to pass on to our children. This is the harsh truth of life and the attitude toward natural resources in our country. Leave your comments under this video and write what you personally think about this situation. Many people will be interested to hear your opinion.